Psalm 39. And it's a Psalm of David, starting in verse 1. I said, I will guard my ways that I may not sin with my tongue. I will guard my mouth as with a muzzle, while the wicked are in my presence. I was mute and silent. I refrained even from good, and my sorrows grew worse. My heart was hot within me. While I was musing, the fire burned. Then I spoke with my tongue. And the rest of the psalm is David's prayer. Lord, make me to know my end, and what is the extent of my days. Let me know how transient I am. Behold, you have made my days as handbreadths, and my lifetime as nothing in your sight. Surely every man at his best is a mere breath. Surely every man walks about as a phantom. Surely they make an uproar for nothing. He amasses riches and does not know who will gather them. And now, Lord, for what do I wait? My hope is in you. Deliver me from all my transgressions. Make me not the reproach of the foolish. I have become mute. I do not open my mouth because it is you who have done it. Remove your plague from me. Because of the opposition of your hand, I am perishing. With reproofs, you chasten a man for iniquity. You consume as a moth what is precious to him. Surely every man is a mere breath. Hear my prayer, O Lord, and give ear to my cry. Do not be silent at my tears, for I am a stranger with you, a sojourner like all my fathers. Turn your gaze away from me, that I may smile again before I depart and am no more. Alrighty. Yeah, I'm not capable of bringing a ray of sunshine. It doesn't matter how early it is or what season. What's fascinating about this psalm is not that it's just a little gloomy, which I love those. I love the diversity of the emotional spectrum you get in the psalms. It reminds us that it's okay to have feelings that aren't just exuberance. So what's fascinating is not that it's a little gloomy, but that it takes a usually good thing and it portrays it as a negative. It flips something that you see portrayed almost exclusively as good throughout the rest of the Psalms. In that last verse, it says, turn your gaze away from me, that I may smile again before I depart and am no more. Usually we see the face of the Lord or his eyes on his people as a good thing. Like God watching you is a good thing. It's an illustration of divine favor. Right? We even sing his eye is on the sparrow. It's a great thing that the Lord favorably watches over his people. But here, David seems to be convinced of the antithesis of that idea. He is saying that the eye of the Lord on him is the cause of his issues. At this point, David is despairing of life. He's talking about the transient nature of life. He's having an existential crisis. And this kind of language is going to be picked up in Ecclesiastes. It's kind of split scholarly who wrote Ecclesiastes. A lot of people believe it's Solomon. A lot of people believe it wasn't. But it would make sense that Solomon would pick up on this line from his dad and just build a whole book off of it. But the vaporous nature of life is going to be explored and may be found to be the impetus for us enjoying all that God has provided later on in Ecclesiastes. Here, not so much. David begs God to remove his plague, the plague that God put on David. That's what David's saying. It is the opposition of God against David that is causing David's turmoil. It's like we're back in Job, right? Under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, David rightly discerns the source of his calamity. The problem he's experiencing, or the problems he's experiencing, are a direct result of the sovereign work of God. The question is why? And the answer is found in verse 11. With reproofs you chasten a man for iniquity, you consume as a moth what is precious to him. Surely every man is a mere breath. When bad things happen to a person, it is either indicative of God's wrath or God's discipline. It's either punitive, as God punishing sin, or it is disciplinary, as God bringing about perfection in those who are his. What David is experiencing is not the wrath of God, because he is God's. He belongs to the Lord. Rather, David calls it a chastening. This is the disciplinary work of God to bring about sanctification in David's life. God is whittling away the excess, carving off the things that are not of the Lord. What David said, those things were precious to him. is being eaten away as by moths. God is removing things from David. You've probably experienced this in your own life, right? In your own sanctification process, hard times come and you lose something or someone that you thought was important. But what we find on the other side of our dilemma is that we are oftentimes better off without it. In fact, we have grown in our dependence on God because of the dilemma, because of the lack of that thing or relationship. You can never go wrong by depending on God more for meeting your needs, physical and emotional. I don't mention spiritual because he's already met all those needs by the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And through the word, prayer, and fellowship, we see that Jesus also took care of the mental and emotional needs back then too. We just didn't know it. I say back then, and you say my fellowship is now, but all those things were established. The word validated in the life of Christ, prayer commanded by Christ, fellowship commanded by Christ, and in establishing the church. All of those things were validated and built, and they meet our physical and emotional needs, and he did it all back then. It's just the physical day-to-day stuff, and that's why he commands us to pray for our daily bread. So today, I pray that we have the perspective to see the troubles that we're facing are one of the ways that God does his perfecting work in us. Then we can rejoice, as James commands us to when he says in James 1:2-4, "Consider it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance, and let endurance have its perfect result, so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing."